According to recent studies from the National Association of REALTORs, first-time home buyers who aspire to buy a home is up to 97% of those who also experience at least one significant barrier when it comes to owning a home for the first time. Potential issues could include the high price of homes, increasing mortgage rates, or having difficulty saving for a down payment. These financial obstacles have pushed the share of first-time home buyers to a record low of 21% of all home purchases as of late 2025. A man on a mission to change this alarming statistic and trend is my friend, Phil Ganz. As the president of Next Wave Mortgage and a certified mortgage specialist, Ganz has spent over 2 decades helping first-time home buyers, families, and investors overcome barriers to home ownership. His focus is building transparent and accessible mortgage solutions, especially for those who are affected by affordability challenges. He leads a multi-state team who is dedicated to bringing creative loan programs, down payment assistance, and financial literacy initiatives to the communities they serve. Ganz is dedicated to removing the red tape that often encumbers first-time home buyers so that they can realize their dream of owning a home and building financial and family wealth through the place they call home. And he joined me this week to tell me more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Phil, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program. And I'm super excited to learn about your career in real estate, my friend. Great to see you and happy Thursday to you.
Happy Thursday.
Absolutely. So, Phil, I wanted your opinion on, home affordability, because in the States, I know it's a big topic of conversation and how it's affecting the morale of first-time home buyers. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Well, look, I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, and my family lives in California, but I happen to live in Florida. And, California and Boston, you ain't buying a home unless you win the lottery, right? Florida's much more affordable. And one reason why it's affordable is it's easy for the builders to put it up homes. There's no time really from buying the land to building, or much shorter. In Massachusetts, if you want, or California, you want to build something, it's a multi-step process, and it can take years, if not decades. And because of that cost goes into the price of the homes. And so, they got to make homes, they got to make it more federally approved, where you can skip a lot of the processes to reduce the cost of building.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you think we can reduce that red tape, my friend, and make home ownership more affordable to the masses? My friend, what are your thoughts there?
My thoughts is that you got to make it a federal issue, right? You can't let the states or the cities make things impossible to build. Look what happened in California. You had the wildfires, right? And people couldn't even build. They still haven't had any progress. And the government is too big with too many multi steps. Look, if your home got burnt down, you should be able to build the same home like right away, right? You shouldn't have to like stay in a hotel, move to a different city. I mean, what happened in California was a disaster. I mean, Airbnbs benefited, billionaires benefited from buying all the land they've always wanted to at a big discount. And ultimately, the lower to middle class suffers. And what a lot of people don't always realize is that you could own a home that's worth $1 million. You've owned it for 15 years, right? You bought it for nothing 15 years ago. And that doesn't mean you're rich. You could have a salary of 90 grand or 110,000 and own something very valuable. So it's about trying to do the right thing for people. And you're like, what would you do? The first thing what I would do is I would make it much more easily for people to build a home. That's what I would do.
Yeah, absolutely. And Phil, tell me about the company you run, because I know that New Wave Mortgage, you've run it now for almost 2 decades, my friend, and you help first-time home buyers and investors really navigate the buying process with more ease, my friend, by giving them more pathways to home ownership. So tell me all about it, my friend.
Yeah, no, at Next Wave Mortgage, one of my beliefs is to help out low to moderate income families achieve. And, we offer almost every down payment assistance program. If it's available, we sign up. And that's a big difference because what a lot of consumers don't realize why it's so hard to get the assistance that you seek is that it's simply not profitable for the banks. So the banks don't want to make it easy to be able to have access. They limit what's available. There's no limit at Next Wave. If it's possible, we want to definitely help people. We put people first.
Yeah, absolutely. And Phil, tell me about the biggest lesson that you're surprised to learn when working with first-time home buyers, which they don't know about, my friend. I'm curious to ask you about the level of education that you have to go through when working with these first-time home buyers, my friend, because the process and the affordability has changed so much. So what's the biggest lesson you think you have to teach people about home ownership these days, my friend?
I'll tell you exactly what it is. It's the amount of money that you would need to close on the house. See, when I started in 2001 on May 7th, you couldn't do it online. You'd have to go to people's homes or send out a package. It was very personable. So you'd be able to go over all the details. Now, it's all about how fast you can go. So think about it. People fill out an app. What's the next thing? Pre-approval. You're excited. But what should happen is the second step is not the pre-approval, is that you go over a cash to close summary and understand not only your monthly payments, but how much money you'll need to close. And that is like a calculator that people don't like to put out there. They don't want to show how much money you would need to close. They're in hiding. And so, I take the time to make sure people understand the numbers. I get calls every single day for this one thing. I don't have enough money to close. I'm with this company that's popular online. Can you help me get assistance? And they don't realize the down payment assistance is packaged together just like when you travel online, like with Delta Airlines, right? Like your bags go with you. They think, oh, I'm going to, book with United and my bags will go with Delta. And you just can't do that. Even if the down payment assistance is forgivable, it's still a second mortgage. This is the bottom line. So you can't like unpackage down payment assistance in almost every single case.
Yeah, absolutely. And Phil, I'm also curious to ask you about, you know, uh, the literacy that people have to go through when they're exposed to this process for the first time, my friend, because, oftentimes people are novice when they go into the home buying process for the first time. So talk to me about the need to increase literacy for these first-time home buyers, my friend.
Yeah, I think the literacy really needs to start in school. And you see a big, a big thing that's missing. That topic really is missing. And I really think, like, if you look at it of the success, there's three types of education, like you kind of view in America right now. You have, people that learn at home, stay at home schooling. You have private schools and public schools. And what people don't know is that the highest performers, by far, not even close, is actually Tim Tebow style, stay at home schooling. And it's because there's no distractions and they learn what's needed. The kids are invested in that. The next level is private schools and then followed by public schools. Unless there's a change on the national level, you're not going to have what you need being taught. And I think that's really important. I think one way you can change America is to give everyone an opportunity that is willing, right, to meet the challenge of home ownership, you know? And I think that's what it takes. People need this is a big thing. And it really has to come from the middle class because that is the class that's getting squeezed.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. And, I'm also curious to ask you, because I know that you've been in this game for about 24 years now, and I'm curious to ask you how your personal experience really informs the way that you help the people that you have come across. Because, things like setting financial goals through home ownership is important. And I know that you have a degree in economics. So tell me about how your personal experience in helping people achieve their financial goals has worked out for you, my friend.
Yeah, you have to be active within the process. You almost have to de-technology and really talk with people and understand their situation. So I'll tell you this. Step one is a loan application. You make sure the loan application is perfect. Step two is you got to understand the client situation. This means if they're employed by a company, their W-2s, their most recent pay stubs, their bank statements, and really their year-end pay stubs. Because on the year-end pay stubs, if someone gets paid variable, whether it's overtime, commission, bonus, is variable. So what I'm really trying to tell you is that you got to take a very custom tailored approach to this. And their bank account will also help me. And I think this really makes a difference to want to work with someone. You know what the issue is in America? People want to see the home sometimes before they want to know their numbers. They're more intrigued about a cool Super Bowl commercial than they are about getting it right. They want the flash. They want the sizzle. right? They're missing substance. And that's what home ownership has become. It's been more sizzle than substance. Look at the shows that sell. $1 million listing. You know what doesn't sell? First time home buyer, a family of four with Judy. That's not exciting, right? And, but that's the reality of America, right? I mean, people miss it, but you got to be able to help people. And I am here to help America out.
Yeah, absolutely. And Phil, just as an aside, you're a very energetic person, my friend. So I'm curious, where do you get your energy and zest for life from, my friend? Friend, what are your thoughts there?
Well, look, I never wanted to get into mortgages. You know, I graduated December of 2000, gonna do the Peace Corps, right? I wanted to help people. Obviously, you had 9/11 in September. So I was supposed to go to Uzbekistan in February. And I want to let you know something. So before February, I was working at the Chinese Progressive Association. This was to help. I volunteered helping to get Chinese people citizenship because you got to pass the test, right? And this was a time in America right after 9/11. And I want to tell people no one wanted people to become, I mean, if you think it's hostile now, you had right after 9/11, you had about zero people that wanted to get people passed. I mean, the people that were doing the exams, Kevin, they would walk up to someone, shake their hand, and say, "What color is the window?" This is not normal. This probably would be on TikTok today. But this is the way the world was in 2001. So I think I take that mentality of, seeing people suffer and, my drive to wanting to help people and to deliver that message of home ownership to America, right? Because I do want to give people that opportunity. And by the way, a lot of topics are nuanced, right? Not everything is always straightforward. So I think, in anything, the details are very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And Phil, I want to return to the issue of home affordability for just a second, my friend, because I wanted your thoughts on this. According to the National Association of Home Buyers, my friend, they report that home affordability remains a critical issue as we've been discussing with just about 74% of U.S. households unable to afford a medium price new home in 2025 as of last year. The median rather home price was just under $460,000, buddy, with a 30-year mortgage rate and a mortgage rate of rather 6.5%, my friend. So I'm curious about. They also report that it translates to a pricing just on or just over rather 100 million people out of households out of being able to afford a home, my friend. So I'm wondering your thoughts on those statistics and what strikes you most when you hear those statistics, my friend.
Well, the first thing is, Kevin, you got to make the math, right? So when you look at interest rates, say on $100,000, right? If I lend you at 5% $100,000, that's $500. 6% is 600, right? So like if someone's buying say a $400,000 house at 5%, that's 2 grand, and at 6%, that's 2,400, that's $400, right? But the reality is this: that difference seems high, and yes, that affects affordability. But what affects affordability more than interest rates is the price. The loan amounts is what is truly unaffordable. If homes were 250, then it wouldn't matter if your rate was 39%. Eighths of a point or half a point only matter when the home price is way too high. When you look at the biggest builders, D.R. Horton, Pulte, ask yourself, why are they primarily focused on the states where it's easy to build? Florida, Texas, the Carolinas. Where do they not want to build? Where they can't make any money and it's too expensive, right? Where the politicians get too far involved. And I don't like to mention this only because it makes something like, okay, I think a lot of times people have a good heart and their heart's in the right place, but they're not good at thinking things through. They're playing checkers when you need to be playing chess. If you want to have things affordable, you need to increase the supply. The first thing you need to focus in on, how do we massively build a lot of homes without local politicians having any say? That's what you need to do. You need to kick out these local politicians that I think have a good heart, but they haven't been middle class in a long time. They haven't been poor in a long time, right? It's hard to think like a middle class person when you are sitting in $1 million home. It just is, right? This is why it is hard to win back-to-back championships or have 2 or 3 good albums in a row. Because once you are sleeping on silk sheets, you forget the details that are important. And the details are you need to increase supply. That is what you need to be focused in on. Don't get distracted by the nonsense of rates. We are playing with pennies. That's what you're talking about me on interest rates. If I was to run, I'll tell you, you're like, what would you do if you could control things right away? Say you put me as president or you put me as governor. The first thing I do is I kick out all the zoning people. I say, look, build high, build fast, build right. We're going to build to the sky. We're going to build all over the place, right? We would increase supply dramatically. And once you increase supply, you would see an example like in Austin, Texas. Like all of a sudden, it becomes homes went up, now prices come down. And that's how we would win. We'd win with economics that makes sense, and anyone that would want a home that would be affordable. We'd allow a massive amount of building, and I wouldn't allow anyone to stop me. We just build all over the place. Now, people would say, oh, this and that, because they want to keep values high. That's what people don't understand. People think they're your friend. Oh, I'm looking out for my neighborhood, or I'm doing this. No, they're looking out for them, right? And they know if they stop building, they benefit. And if that wasn't the case, then how come all these politicians go in medium class and they come out like zillionaires, right? Because they all know that someone will give them money if they just play the role. And the reality is that you need to increase supply and demand, build to the moon. That's what I'd call Elon Musk. Let's build to the moon, right? How high can we build? How far? How fast? You increase supply, and that will solve everything. I promise you. This is the solution, and America needs to get behind it. That's how you would solve this right away. The second thing I would do immediately is I would increase the homestead for low to middle class families. Very simple. I say, look, the average home in America, let's just say it's $400,000. I say you are not going to pay any more property taxes on that house at the average price of the state. That's what I would do. Now, if you pay above, the home goes above, you pay taxes. If it's an investment property, you're going to pay some taxes. There's ways to make this work very easily. Very simple. But you don't have to tax the middle class enough. And it stops people that could really have generational wealth from participating, And I think that happens a lot. I think a lot of the wealthy people get their hands in it and they say, no, let's tax the middle class. Because if you tax the middle class more, you make the wealthy people even more wealthy. And it's the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. You're like, well, what do we need to do? We need to eliminate property taxes 100% for the average state and below. Then you just kick out people and you let people massively build. Then the third thing is insurance, right? We massively eliminate insurance fraud. This is a big thing. You say no more fraud, you bring down the rates, and you also make a rule of what these insurance companies can profit. Straight up, that's what it is. You say you can't do crazy percentages and all of this. And I think if you can get the insurance under control with the taxes and the home building, you got a chance. Would it be perfect? No. But could I tomorrow decrease everything 50% on the price? Absolutely I could. But I would get away from interest rates. I'd get involved in supply. I'd reduce your taxes and your homeowner's insurance. And that's exactly what I would do. And I know how to do it. It'd be very quick. I don't think I'd be popular, by the way. Do you think your plan would work? No, because I'd probably, people would be upset with it. I would have riots. People would be so upset that I'd bring down the home prices so much. You say, well, who would be upset with your plan? The homeowners. Think about it. If all of a sudden I can make a $400,000 house a 250, all the homeowners would be very upset. All the investors. Let me tell you something. Have you ever met a politician that's a renter? No. So you're inevitably hurting every single person, even the people in power. I'd become like the anti-pharmaceutical company, the anti-Budweiser, the companies that usually give the most political parties. They'd be like, Phil Ganz is the worst because I would have reduced the home values to help out the people. And that's the way that you do it, is that you increase supplies. You go to the builders and you just tell them, let's build. And if you do that, they're going to love it. I mean, D.R. Horton Pulte would be my friends. By the way, I like these companies. These are good companies, right? We would definitely do that. But too many people focus on nonsense, of things that don't matter or pennies, right? People are looking for a 3% decrease. I wanted a 50% decrease. Now I could do it very quickly. If I had ultimate control, hell yeah, this wouldn't take long. This would happen in about 12 months.
Yeah, well, my friend, I have to tell you that that was one of the more extensive but informative answers. So I appreciate that. And Phil, I'm also curious to get your thoughts on the fact that CNBC reported last year that the average age for a first-time home buyer has increased from 38 to 40 going into the beginning of 2026 and the end of last year. So I'm curious to ask you if you're surprised by that statistic and whether you believe that because older Americans are now buying homes at a larger rate, whether that's a disadvantage for younger Americans. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Well, I think a couple of things. I think younger Americans today have different priorities than younger generations a long time ago. This is reality, right? And they do face challenges of unaffordability. But it's back to my point of fixing the issue, right? You want younger generations to buy, you want to bring that down? But you got to ask yourself this one question. Who benefits from increasing the number? The older generations, right? If you want to solve this problem, it's just a math issue. You got to increase the supply and you got to kick out these local governments. They got these boards. I got to tell you this. These environmental boards, right? And by the way, I'm the most environmental person. I lived in Key Largo, Florida. I love the environment. So let's just start with this, right? Like Peace Corps person mentality is usually, just to let you know, pro-environment. We're just going to throw this out there. Like, I love nature. In fact, I like animals more than people, right? But we need to be able to build homes, right? If you want to solve issues, fundamental issues, you want to bring down the age, then all you need to do is increase supply, kick out these boards that say no. Don't let them say no. That's the thing. I would just make this a federal law. I'd hard code it, and maybe some of the states don't like it. But you don't need rent control if you're a homeowner. And that is exactly what I don't like. See, people put in these policies like rent control, such nonsense that I don't like. I think it's terrible, right? I would say, you know what? Why don't we create more homes for people? We're going to let people build to the moon, and we're going to drop the prices so affordable that the prices of rent will naturally go down because I'm going to increase the supply of the units. But it doesn't work like this. It's like misinformed politicians. You increase supply, right? Price goes down, right? If supply is bigger than demand, price goes down. How come they don't know that? Like, this is like fourth grade, right? Like, assuming these people went there, but that's what I would tell you. And like, people are just like, oh yeah, you know why? Because so many of these issues are so nuanced that people just like you get sometimes two choices, and you know, like these choices of people, right? But it's very simple. It's just a math equation. You know, if your supply is greater than demand, prices go down. So if you build to the moon, prices are going to skyrocket down. If you reduce property taxes, people can easily afford to stay in the home. But I know what someone would say, but look, if you reduce the monthly payments, the more people would want to buy. Yeah, no kidding, right? You don't have to do like idiot. Like, basically, when you see like rent control, that basically means like you're trying to take Ozempic because you're overweight, right? That's literally it. It's like, okay, well, why don't we just solve the real problem? We don't have enough homes, right? It's like it's a distraction. That's why I don't like when people like sometimes come up with policies, because it's the policies that punish the low to moderate income people. See, it sounds like a good talking point, right? Because you're like, we're going to do rent control. So we're definitely for moderate income. Because look at the people that would benefit, you know, because there'd be low income. But no, it's like you just like ruin it for everyone else because you don't focus on how to really solve the issue. And that's build to the moon. And that's exactly what my policy would be called. I would call it build to the moon. That's literally it. We'd have so much supply, home prices would crash down. It'd be great.
And you know, Phil, you know, I know that we've talked about how politics is getting in the way of this. So this is a timely question, my friend. Poll conducted last year from the National Association of REALTORs and the public opinion a strategy firm called Hart Research revealed that 52% of voters today in America believe that home affordability is an important voting issue, but they also say that politicians, as you say, my friend, are disconnected from the issue. So, what are your thoughts on that finding, my friend, and how can we bridge the gap of understanding versus reality in the political sector when it comes to home affordability? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Look, you know what the issue is with like a CNBC is that they don't ask the tough questions. This is it. They have guests on and they're like asking these questions. I'm like, let's drill them, right? Let's get to the bottom of it. And then even if they bother to ask a hard question, like they accept answers that are unacceptable to me, right? And I know a lot of people have lost faith, but the reality is if it's 52%, it says an issue. I would tell you it's 100%. The other 48 people are just they're embarrassed to say, yeah, it is an issue. It should be an issue of everyone. It's an American issue. And we need to reduce the home prices dramatically through build to the moon. That's literally my slogan I would do. I'd actually only run on one issue because I'll tell you this. If you fix home ownership, you fix a lot of issues in America. You're like, really? Look at it like this. I mean, how many renters are in jail? Like, I don't even know if there's a renter in jail. One, two. Like, do you even imagine if everyone is a homeowner? I don't even know you need police, or at least they'd be doing different things, right? Because If people have something to live for, if they have money, then they don't commit crimes. The best way to reduce crime and make neighborhoods better is give people opportunity to become wealthy. So everyone can become pro police if we can create wealth opportunities for everyone. And that's the biggest thing. This is a big thing that's missed, right? You wanna you wanna help out communities, then you help them become homeowners.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you need to do. You need to do that, and you do it by affordability. You don't do it by programs that really like ruin home value. Like I'll give you an example. They'll say, "Oh, we have a lottery home, okay?" And it goes to poor people, right? Or low income, right? But they'll put a deed restriction and they'll say on the restriction the value of the home cannot go up more than 2%.
Mm-hmm.
But inflation is 3. Check this out. So then, like their asset, because if inflation is increasing more than the value of the home, then what you owe is worthless. The goal of home ownership is to create legacies for families. And that is what is missed, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, so much of this stuff is so crazy, you know, and that things get mixed up, you know, and I'll be like realistic. It's like, you know what's upsetting? Like I didn't even know. It's like Gavin Newsom. He was married to the Fox News contributor or whatever her name was, right? Like these people are so intertwined that if you put them in a room, you couldn't pick out who's who. And that's just the reality. Like it's just the way it is. It's like they all take money, and it's like it's like the way the things are, right? Like the Huffington Post, liberal paper, was started by Ariana Huffington. She was like married to like some Republican congressman. And I'm not saying that's wrong because you can't control love. I get it. But there's too many examples of like people flip flopping based on opportunities to gain seats and not like who they really are, who their DNA is. They just want to like win. And, till they just like, you have someone that just says, look, let's drag down the home prices. Because I know what people would say. They'd be really upset with me. They're like, if you increase supply, what happens to all the people that own homes? Ask yourself, Kevin, if I could reduce the price of homes 30% today and people bought yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a bunch of people are underwater, right? So maybe it's not smart if I increased supply so drastically that people were upset with me. But I think that's the mentality that needs to happen because you would create American jobs, American opportunities, and home ownership for all. And I think, and I know, this is an American issue that can bring people together. If we make it affordable, everyone can win. It's not a zero game. It's not a zero sum game if you build to the moon. I'm promising you that.
Yeah. And Phil, I'm also curious to ask you about, the perception of whether this is a great time to buy a house because according to Fox News, or Fox Business rather, who did a survey last year, they found that only 17% of Americans believe that now's a great time to buy a house, which is down from 69% as early as 2013. So I'm curious to ask you, Phil, if you're surprised by those numbers and what we do to create better conditions so that more people can feel that this is a good time to get into the market. My friend, what are your thoughts there?
This is such a great question, but I'll explain it to you like this. This would be like asking Jake Paul what his thoughts would be if he wanted to box Anthony Joshua again. And it's because he got beaten up so bad. When America gets beaten up so bad, that you don't know what that person looks like, but they got black and blue. That's what it is. It's more we've taken a lot of punches. But home ownership over many years, there's never been a better investment in America over the long run. If you look at it 10 years, this is something that you'll pass on. You can't pass on for rent. This is like asking someone, well, what's the best year to go to college? How about right away? That's how I approach home ownership. Rich people own, poor people rent, people in jail are renters, people who are homeowners are usually not criminals. It's like all these social factors, like I'm not having that talk. Fox News is wrong. Fox News should encourage home ownership. I can ask people on the street that are beaten up that will say, no, I'm discouraged, right? But this is a political take. Like I said, I would say to any American, buy a home, without this manipulation. If you have a chance today to buy a home, don't do it for you. Do it for your kids.
Yeah, well, building generational wealth is important, and one of the most effective ways you can do that is to buy a house. So I agree with you, my friend. And, Phil, I'm also curious to get your thoughts on this because our friends over at Fortune magazine reported last year that 68% of millennials are counting on the baby boomer generation to leave an inheritance. And what they want to do with that money, my friend, is to buy a home or to buy real estate. But the baby boomer generation doesn't seem to be that inclined, my friend. So how do you think we should look at the baby boomers leaving a legacy, and whether you think they should leave money in an inheritance form so that their millennial generation can buy houses? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Well, look at the last question. Is it the right time to buy? If you want to be in this opportunity to help your kids, you buy, right? That's what you buy and buy more. And I would tell anyone that, look, you buy to help out your kids. You buy to help out your generation. Now, look, do you want to leave your kids a billion if you're Elon Musk? Probably not, right? But, should you help out your kids? Absolutely. You should absolutely help out your kids. Should give them every advantage, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's about. I'd give them every advantage. That's why you should buy today, right? The only people
Yeah.
that don't buy are like usually people that can't buy because educated people buy homes.
Absolutely. And Phil, I've got a couple of issues left for you. And the first of those issues is this, my friend. Housing costs, as we know, are a burden for so many people, with about 60% of millennials and 46% of Gen Z spending over half of their monthly salary and income on their housing expenses, my friend. And that was reported by CNBC as early as this year, my friend. So I'm sure that doesn't surprise you, but I'll give you the floor to give me your thoughts on how you think spending so much money on real estate can either help or hinder the financial decisions that Americans make. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Well, first, America has to know how landlords come up with rent. It's usually a percentage of the value of the home. I mean, every area is different, but it's usually, you know, 6 to 8% of the home, divide by 12, and that's what your rent is. So by limiting supply, right, you increase rents. And then you look for like dumb things to solve it, like rent control. Horrible idea. Worst idea. It's such a bad idea because it's like you don't want to build. Like that's what I want to get to. I just want to build to the moon. I don't want people to tell me no. I want to literally build to the moon. I want to be like, yeah, let's just build as high as we can, as far as we can, put homes everywhere, right? And that's it. You know, that's how you solve this problem, right? You just build to the moon. And you don't let people tell you no. And you help with the property taxes for low to moderate income families, by the value of the home. And it's that simple. And that's how you solve it. Right? You could help. It's just a math equation because the rents are high because there's a lack of supply. So that means the rents go up. The rents, it's disgusting what's happening right now. You know, and like I said, you won't find someone that's more pro environment than me, but I'm going to put affordability on this. I'm going to say we need to make things more affordable.
Yeah, that's certainly a big part of the problem, my friend. And I'm curious to ask you, Phil, we've talked a lot about government intervention and zoning and all of the, the barriers that government has when it comes to making home affordability more accessible for more people. So I wanted to flip the question and ask you, what role do you think government can play in making this a more proactive and positive experience for first-time home buyers and, quite frankly, for all Americans? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Well, look, government loves government. They want a bigger government,
That's an
right?
understatement, yeah.
Yeah, you know what they say? Oh, we just want bigger government. This is horrible. More that means more no's. The more no's, the worse things are. Right? This raises prices. This is like what frustrates me so much. They just want more government. Why would you want more government? I would say, look, you got to increase supply. If your supply does not go higher than demand, values go up. That's the equation for America to know. If you have higher supply, then more demand, then values go down, right? So you just built to the moon, and it solves every issue in America. If you had Philligans built to the moon, I'll tell you what, home prices would go down, rent would go down, crime would go down, education would go down, birth rate would go up. It'd be a great place. And you started by increasing supply. That's all you need to do to solve 98% of issues in America is increase supply. And that's what they don't want to talk about. What happens if homes were affordable? What happens then? Right? What happens if everything was affordable? What does the miracle look like then? And how do you get there? With a math equation. Like if you ask any of these politicians, okay, you're not allowed to say words. You could only make the math happen. You could only write a math equation down. So you have to show it through math. Only math. That was the rule, right? You could only show it through math. Nothing else. No talking, no fancy ties, nothing. If the math doesn't work, you can't do it. You got to make the math math. And if you can, then you can solve 98% of the problems in America. That's simple. The other 2%, you always have problems. You got disgruntled people, okay? But 98 goes away very quickly.
And Phil, just because you're from Boston, my friend, I'm wondering your thoughts on this past Super Bowl and the outcome of it, my friend.
Yeah, I'll tell you what happened. Look, you know, the best quarterbacks in the NFL, like Patrick Mahomes, are worth 7 points. The Patriots lost by 19 points, right? So it wasn't really about the players. The New England Patriots were not well prepared. They got caught off guard. If you switched the coach, that's all you did. Would the New England Patriots have won? Maybe. Would they have lost by 19 points? No. We lost by 19 points because we were unprepared. That doesn't mean that Mike Vrabel is a bad coach. He's a great coach. That doesn't mean that New England Patriots didn't have a great season. We overachieved. But we did miss an opportunity because like this, opportunities are few and far between. Drake May could become Dan Marino. maybe a couple of MVPs, but no Super Bowls. Super Bowls are really hard to get to. And if you get to them, you got to be prepared. And the reality is that people like to bang on Bill Belichick. You know what Bill Belichick never did? He never got blown out in a Super Bowl. This is the big thing. He was over. Now people say, well, Brady did more of that. He also got him into position. Because if Brady was in that last Super Bowl, he doesn't have a chance. And that's because he got killed. I was at the 28-3 Super Bowl. And I will tell you, even when the score got down, they were still the better coach team. Coaching wins out. And that's what happened. It was like, you know what it was like, the 28-3 Super Bowl? It's like a novice got up a couple moves on a grandmaster. Okay, but it didn't take long for the computer or the grandmaster to catch back up. And that's what happens. Luck runs out eventually. And the Patriots were not prepared. This was an embarrassment in epic proportions to coaching. But also, I will say this. The number one game out of all championship games where you have blowouts is the Super Bowl because there's more pressure. Pressure on the players and pressure on the coaches. We got away from what worked. We got away from the fundamentals like tackling. And we weren't prepared for what we needed to do. And that was run the ball and run it consistently. Well, you don't need a pass if you run. And that's what basically ended up happening. Drake May actually had more yards, more TDs, and a higher passer rating than Sam Darnold. So you actually had the better quarterback. But unfortunately, you had the worst coaches for that day. And hats off to Mike McDonald and the Seattle Seahawks for an excellent coaching job. Coaching wins championships. The best upsets in America or in the Olympics have become better coaching. Right? The 1980 Olympics, where the United States beat the Russians. You know what? We didn't have the best players. We had the best coach. And if we have ever seen this, you don't need the best. Coaching matters in everything. In sports, it's not the best talent. Coaching can really help out. Right? And if you see the Olympics tonight, what is this about? It's about being the best parents. It's really the champion of parents. You know what's not there? Jimmy from the orphanage. He's not there. His parents, usually the best parents that are waking up at 4 a.m. to bring these kids all over the place. That's the common theme. Great parents. And that's what I would say went wrong in that Super Bowl. Our parents in that Super Bowl didn't show up. They didn't even prepare. They were just, it was just very sad day for the region of New England. And by the way, I do feel bad for Will Campbell. He should have never been put in that position. You know, we saw all these sacks. They knew what they had. They had 17 regular season games. They had 3 playoff games. They knew our weaknesses. He should never have been in this position, right? It's like, I'm 5'7". Would you put me at center of a basketball team? You say, no, you're 5'7", and you're slow. You're like, we're not going to do this. But what happens if my dad put me as a center in the NBA Finals of a basketball game? You'd say, this is ridiculous. Well, what do you think happened when you put an injured rookie as your left tackle with no help? What do you think happens? I could have told you what happens. This is what happens. And then Drake May hurt his shoulder, right? Why did he hurt his shoulder? I'll tell you why. Because he got injured from the left tackle. And it's not his fault. They were not put in position to succeed. And this is like a really horrible thing. And sometimes when we got some cheap wins along the way, that people overlook what would ultimately happen to a better coach team. They had better parents. And this is why homeschooling outperforms the best private schools, and private schools outperform public schools overall. These are facts. Coaches matter.
Coaching and timing certainly does matter, my friend. And my final question for you, Phil, has to do with your personal and professional legacy and how you want that to be defined, my friend.
I want my personal and professional legacy as someone that's helped other people. That have really helped out other people.
Yeah. Well, that's
More, no less.
yeah,
Phil helped people.
yeah, that's certainly something to aspire to, my friend. So, if people want to get connected with you, my friend, what's the best way they can do that?
I want you to call me. It's 617 9317. That's 617 529 9317. Send me a text or leave me a message, but try to just so you know I can get to it. In case I'm on a great podcast like with you, Kevin. And I want to tell you, I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and talk. I never thought I'd be on a podcast to be able to talk about real issues. But thank you for giving me the platform to hopefully one day make America a better place.
Well, you're certainly welcome, my friend, and I want to thank you for being here and providing me all your great insights and expertise in the world of home ownership. I want to thank you for the good work that you do to make home ownership an aspirational achievement for so many first-time home buyers and investors, my friend. I want to thank you for being here and for engaging in conversation with me this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Thank you for having me.